Today I'm having a bit of a rant about nail guns. Hiya folks, welcome back to the show. Last time I promised that I would explain some of the problems that I've been having with nail guns, and hopefully you can learn from some of my mistakes of being a cheapskate. Now, if you've been following this channel for a while, you'll know that I'm more of a fair weather woodworker, and as such, the kind of nail gun that I'm more experienced with is a little kind of brad nailer along the lines of this. And generally speaking, I am in no way qualified to talk about these in any way, shape or form, because I know very little about them. But the crux of it is that if you're going to be doing interior carpentry and whatnot, you're probably going to be using like little 18 gauge brad nails along the lines of this. But when you start getting into more serious kind of exterior and structural carpentry, you're going to be using nails that are more along the lines of these kind of 90mm 3.1mm framing nails. These ring shank nails, they're designed for structural use. They are the sort of nails that get used for joining structural timbers together in roofs, floors, joists, all sorts of timber work that make up the core structure of a property. And as I say, I'm very used to using these little fellas, but these are slightly outside of my comfort zone. So I've had this little Stanley Boss Stitch set and fix nail gun for years. It's a great little nail gun, just fires, as I say, 18 gauge brads. And the nice thing about it being an air nailer is, well, air tools, they're dead cheap, and generally they're quite satisfying to use, and there's very little to go wrong on them. You don't have an electric motor in them, there's no battery, there's very little that can break, and that's why air tools tend to be much cheaper than electric tools and gas nailers and all that sort of thing. So if you've got a compressor, it makes sense to make use of as many air tools as you can. The compressor really is the investment, and then, as I say, the air tools that you buy afterwards are generally much cheaper. This one, by the way, in case you're wondering, so it's a BT35B and it shoots 18 gauge brads, 15mm to 35mm. Very useful, very versatile little brad nailer, but it's absolutely no use for anything structural. The nails are far too small. So, as I say, if you are going to be doing structural work, you need to invest in something a bit beefier, and this is a framing nail gun. So this is the sort of nail gun that you use if you want to use those big nails like I showed you before. Why can't I release it? There we go. I'm trying to take the nails out just to show you. I'm a bit cack-handed because the camera's in the road. But they basically use these collated nails, so it needs a fair bit of force behind it to fire these into C24 structural timber and whatnot. Anyway, I'm very happy with this nail gun, as you'll find out very shortly, but getting to this point was a bit of a disaster. To explain all that, I'm going to have to rewind a little bit and go back to before I owned this and two other nail guns that came before it, when I went out and bought an air framing nailer, and things just didn't go according to plan at all. This has been a total nightmare. Basically, to cut a long story short, like, I don't use framing nailers like all the time. I very rarely use a framing nailer. A framing nailer obviously uses great big 90mm nails like this, and it's just not something that I use very often. So I couldn't really justify spending a huge amount of money on a framing nailer. So the first framing nailer I bought was a Silverline, I can't remember what model number, but it's a Silverline air nailer, and I figured, you know, I've already got a compressor and whatnot, I'll be fine with an air nailer, and it was only like 100 quid or something. But that didn't work properly, and it kept on misfiring and not firing the nails fully into the bit of wood. I've lost a bit of wood that I had that showed you what it was doing, but I had a test piece of wood, and basically, ignore this isn't the bit of wood, but I had a bit of wood, and it kept on not firing the 90mm nails fully into the bit of wood, and it was just incapable. The Silverline was incapable of firing 90mm ring shank nails all the way through normal C24 timber. It just couldn't do it. And then it turned out that the problem is, if you actually check the instructions for the Silverline, it says that it can only do 90mm smooth nails. it can't do 90mm ring shank nails, so it's not really a fault of the nail gun. Unfortunately, it didn't tell you that on the advertising and on Amazon and whatnot. So I ended up returning that. And then I thought, well, I was very tempted to go for the Hikoki battery nail gun. And it came recommended by Rag and Bone Brown, by Keith from Rag and Bone Brown, and from Robin Clevitt. Both said, yes, go for the Hikoki battery nail gun, because it's brilliant. So I completely ignored their advice and went for the Hikoki gas nail gun to save 100 quid. And surprise, surprise, it's been an absolute disaster. Why didn't I listen to Robin and Keith, who both said go for the Hikoki battery nailer, it's really, really good? But no, because I'm a complete cheapskate, I went for the gas one instead because it was a little bit cheaper. But you know, to kind of self-justify this, it got fairly good reviews, although there wasn't that many reviews on YouTube. But it got okay reviews on the reviews I could see. But man, let me just show you what it does. It just doesn't work. It's simple as that. I've got it all packaged up, ready to return. To be fair, thank you to Toolstop, who have been amazing and agreed without any questions asked to just take it back, even though I've used it, and give us a full refund. But I've ordered the Hikoki one I was gonna get, but I wish I'd just got that in the first place, to be honest. But let me just show you what this is doing. And it does it pretty much every time without fail. Oh, right, so that hasn't fired a nail at all, even though there's a nail in the chamber. So it sometimes either doesn't fire at all, so then you've got to kind of clear it out, shove the firing pin back. I'll try again. Right, that's fired. Let's see if I can do another. No, nothing. Oh, that's fired. Nothing. Hopefully you can see this. So, that's fired. That hasn't fired. Try again. Nothing. Nothing. No. No. So, it just randomly... It's misfiring like all the time. Nothing. Yep, fired. Nothing. Nothing. Now it won't fire at all. And what it was doing before is every time you tried to fire a nail, the anvil bit was getting stuck out. And then what you have to do is take the nails out. Really, you should be taking the battery out and whatnot, but I'll just do it carefully just to show you. But you have to poke that back down, reset it, try it. That works. There we go. Anvil's stuck out again. There's the anvil. So, oh, well, not the anvil. What's it called? It's like a firing pin thing. So that has to. So you have to release the nails. Honestly, and for me, it was doing it on every single. When I was up on the roof, it was doing it every time. And it's, nope, still not working, so that won't shoot. Try again. Absolute piece of junk. Try again. That's worked, but I can see that that's not reset itself. No. Nope. 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 Yep. So it's useless. It's like, I would say at least 50% of the time it's not firing, and it's either misfiring or the little firing pin gets stuck in the out position and you have to use a screwdriver to force it all the way back in, or it doesn't fire at all and no nail comes out. That seems to happen quite regularly, where, I mean, you can see how many times on this bit of wood. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at least 6, 7 times. And the trouble is, when you're up a height, it's really hard to tell whether or not nails come out, because sometimes the nail will go quite far. So if you're in an awkward position, you think it's fired a nail in, but it actually hasn't, which is quite dangerous, really. I'll try it again from this side. Let's see what it does. No, well, that won't fire at all, so something's completely jammed there. Let me just unjam it. So here's me up on the scaffolding, And every 2 seconds, literally on pretty much every nail, I was having to do this while up on scaffolding. Absolute nightmare. No, that still won't. I mean, there's a nail in the chamber. I don't know if you can see. There's a nail there, but that won't depress at all now for some reason. So I'm really quite gutted because this has caused no end of havoc. And it's really slowed down the whole... No, it won't depress at all now. What the hell's wrong? It's fundamentally... No. No. So it's completely shafted. So as I say, thank you to Toolstop because they have agreed to take a return on it because it's clearly fundamentally something not right with that. I don't know if they're all like that or not because I couldn't really find much in the way of reviews. But do let me know if you've run into any problems with this particular Hikoki nail gun. It's the NR90GC2 and it's nothing to do with it being cold either, before someone says that it's because it's cold, because it's firing absolutely fine. It's the firing pin that keeps getting jammed. There's another issue with gas nailers where if it's really cold the gas freezes basically, but it's nothing to do with that. It's just the firing pin keeps getting jammed. It's knackered. Oh, and even if you are thinking of getting one of these, one of the most annoying things, it's so hard to get the bloody battery out. I've never known anything like it. It just... God almighty. So, yeah, not great. Not impressed, but it was worth a try. That was my one and only experience of gas nail guns. Never, ever again. Absolutely useless. So I finally put my hand in my pocket and bought the battery framing nailer that I was going to buy in the first place, but I was too tight. A massive thank you to Toolstop, by the way, who took back the gas Hikoki nailer hassle-free. Didn't have any problems returning that, even though it had been used, but I think it was clearly faulty. And unfortunately Toolstop didn't have any of these in stock, but Anglia Tool Centre did have these in, and thanks to them as well for shipping it 10 AM next day when I only ordered it at like 4 or 5 o'clock the previous day, but it was massively holding up the entire job, so I was desperate to get this sorted out, and they came good. And as I say, I bought this Hikoki 1890 framing nailer. So it's the NR1890DC. And by the way, this video isn't sponsored. I don't make sponsored videos. All of the tools that I use, or generally all the tools that I use, I have paid for out of my own money. There's very little that I've been given for free. I'm not going to do an in-depth review of this framing nailer because Skill Builder, Robin Clevert, Keith from Rag and Bone Brown, they've all got you covered there, and I'll include some links to their videos down in the description below because they've gone into this in much more depth and they know much more about framing nailers than I do. As I say, up until this point I was pretty much a framing nailer virgin, so don't take anything I'm saying as gospel. So let me give you a quick guided tour. When you first buy it, obviously it's not going to have any nails in. It'll probably not have the battery connected. I went for the version that came with 2 batteries and a charger because I didn't already have Hikoki gear. So obviously if you've already got Hikoki batteries that fit, it's a 18 volt 5 ampere hour battery that it came with. 2 of these it came with. So pop the battery in, shove your nails in. So you just drop them down the thing like that. I'm using 34-degree nails. It is advertised as being a 30-degree nailer, I think, but the 34-degree nails seem to work absolutely fine. And then you just pull this back and that tensions the nails up in the magazine. And then it's simply a case of turning it on. So we've got a little on-off switch on the handle. I'm not sure if you can see it, but little on-off switch there. You hold your finger on it. That's it now on. And that is ready to do some serious damage to bits of wood. I'll just turn it off so I don't accidentally nail myself with anything. You've got a depth adjustment here because in certain situations, if you're using smaller nails or you're going into soft materials, you might find that the nail fires itself too far in. So you've got a little depth adjuster on here. That was another nightmare with the gas Hikoki one. You had to get like Allen keys out to adjust the depth of the nails. So if you were switching between, for example, these great big long nails and slightly shorter nails like this, which it'll also take, so you can switch between either great big nails or slightly smaller nails, absolutely no problem. So if you are regularly switching between them, but the shorter nails tend to kind of fire them into the material further, then you are constantly having to adjust the depth, which if you have to use Allen keys and tools to adjust the depth, that is just totally not practical. What else can we talk about? It's got a rafter hook on it. That's very handy. So if you're working up a height, you can hang it on the rafters as you're working. I suppose the one downside that I would give it is that it is quite heavy. Once it's got the battery in, you're looking at about 5.1 kilos or something. So if you've been using this for a full day, you know about it. And I think this is where professionals would probably use your slightly lighter but higher end gas nailers if you're using it every day. That would make a lot of sense. The other thing as well that you need to take into account is the distance between the end of here and the business end of the nail gun to make sure that it's going to fit between joists. This seems to fit fine between joists on 400 centres. I know some other nail guns are a little bit longer, and it's fine if you're working on joists that are at 600 centres, but for example, if you're doing noggins on joists that are at 400 centres, you can't fit the nail gun in. You end up having to toenail everything, which is a bit of a pain in the backside. So if you are in the market for a nail gun, do look at the distance between here and the business end to make sure, well, the shorter that distance, the better. You're going to be able to fit it into tighter spaces and things like that, generally. Apparently this is a second generation version. As I say, it's the NR 1890DC. It says 2021-1 on it, but I'm not entirely sure what the difference is, but apparently it's slightly better than the older versions for whatever reason. I don't know if it does bump nailing. I've never ever tried that. Let me try that on a piece of wood. Is it called bump nailing? I think it is. So where you basically just, you don't have to keep pressing the trigger all the time. Every time you just touch the piece of wood, it fires a nail in. Let me try that. You might have to put it into some funny mode. So I'll do a normal one first. So that's a normal trigger fired. So if I hold my finger on the trigger, let me see. No, maybe I have to put it into bump mode. Do you think that's this button? Never even pressed that before. It's flashing. Yeah. So it does bump nailing, and you press that little button there to put it into bump mode. That's for real pros who fire nails at 1,000,000 miles an hour, which I don't. So that bump mode off. I think my only qualm with it as a nail gun amateur is that it has kind of a time delay. So if you press down and then you start thinking about what you're doing, and you're maybe trying to align the shot, and then you try and take the shot with a nail gun, it'll not do anything because it has a safety limit of how long this can be depressed. So if I just depress it and press the button, that fires absolutely fine straight away. But if I had to press it and wait for a bit, that's fine. Try again. Depress it, wait for a bit. God damn it. Depress it, wait for a bit. And what is the delay? Depress it and wait for a bit. Right, there, I don't know, must be about 3 seconds or 5 seconds or something. So that has sometimes got the better of me. It's like, maybe you can configure it. I think if you're a professional framing nailer user, that's not going to be an issue because you're going to be firing the nails so quickly, you're never going to run into that problem. But for someone like me, who's still kind of getting used to it, and I'm still maybe taking my time trying to align the shot, or if you're doing like toenailing and you're trying to get it in an awkward space, sometimes you can end up in a situation where you're kind of holding it for a bit and yeah, I think I've got it right, and then it's too late, that time delay's gone past, and then you have to release it and just do it again, you see. Anyway, it's rock solid. It's absolutely brilliant. I'm very, very happy with it. It just took me a little while to get there. So to wrap this up, the Silverline air nailer was probably absolutely fine, but it wouldn't fire 90mm 3.1mm ring shank nails. It just didn't have enough power in it to fire the bigger nails. The Hikoki gas nailer was either broken or rubbish, and the Hikoki battery nailer is, I'm very, very happy with it. I kind of wish I'd bought one a long time ago, because although I know I said I very rarely use this, and I've only really bought it for doing like the roof and various other like bigger structural jobs as part of the extension, I am finding more and more jobs that this is very, very useful for. So I kind of just wish I'd put my hand in my pocket and bought this in the first place. But hey, you live and learn. I hope you found that vaguely useful. Let me know your preferences for nail guns down in the comments below. As I say, this isn't sponsored. I have no relationship with Hikoki whatsoever, and whether you use a DeWalt nailer or Makita or Hikoki or Milwaukee or whatever, then let us know in the comments below and let us know how you've got on. It would be very interesting to hear your experiences, and we'll probably post back and I'll give you a bit of an update later down the line of how things have been going with this. But there's not much more to talk about. As I say, my only qualm is that it's quite heavy. But hey, it's probably quite good exercise, to be honest. Folks, we'll leave it there for today. I've blethered on enough, as per usual. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you're new to the channel. I shall see you next time. Take care. Tatty bye.